Okay, I'm ready whenever
Okay.
you are.
So Margaret, tell me, what was your aunt, the Countess, like?
What was her?
What was she like? Describe her for me.
She was really down to earth. Even though she came from a very wealthy background, her title is a countess, she married my father, a baron. One of the things is that she could talk to anybody, from a plumber to a ranch hand. She could pretty much drink anybody under the table, but she could talk to anybody on any subject at all. She was extremely well read, knew lots of things to talk about, but as I say, she could everybody related to her, whether it was in Montana or here.
Wonderful. And what memories do you have of Mount Aventine and her?
Well, so during the winter months, my step-grandmother mostly stayed on the East Coast, and she would bring her Hungarian horses over from Montana to Maryland. And my memories of Mount Aventine and her is that we always came down for New Year's Eve and then for Easter. And we had these fabulous New Year's Eve parties and Easter egg hunts where she would invite kids from around the area that we didn't even know. And we'd have these fabulous Easter egg hunts out here in the front, in the woods between the arena and the house. And we would, do relay races, like put your legs in the bag and stuff like that, and run with a partner or trade off eggs and stuff like that. So it was very, very festive. And so my step-grandmother would normally spend Christmas with us in New York City, which is where I was raised. And then she would come down, and then we would come down a couple of days later and spend New Year's Eve here. And then we would come down on another long weekend, sometimes in February, and we always came down here at Easter time as well. And I remember the daffodils and the crocuses. I'd never seen, growing up in Manhattan, you don't see a lot of flowers, or you didn't at that point in time. And I always remember seeing the crocuses and the daffodils as they were just coming up, around Easter time.
Now, did the Countess introduce you to Hungary? How did, because I know your father must have done that as well, but how did you get involved yourself in your interest political-wise and organization-wise in Hungary?
Well, that really wasn't thanks to my step-grandmother. It was really the influence of my father. My father's father, the person that the Countess married, was a diplomat. And we always talked about politics around the table. There's other people who talk about money, or what they did. Around our dinner tables, it was always politics. And I grew up speaking French and Hungarian before I even learned English. So, and we celebrated Central European and Hungarian customs, which I still do today. I pass that on to my children, and my sisters do the same thing with their children. So, we were really immersed in the Hungarian world growing up in Manhattan, and we actually lived on East 86th Street, which is a miniature sort of Central European enclave called Yorkville. And at the time, there were tons of little Hungarian pastry stores, and coffee bars, and there was a wonderful little store that sold Hungarian marzipan things and candy and stuff like that we always used to. All of that has since gone. But we lived in a very sort of Central European Hungarian area in New York City. And as I say, my first languages were Hungarian and French, not English. I didn't learn English until I started going to school. So we were completely immersed with relatives and family who all spoke Hungarian. Every Sunday we went to a Hungarian service at St. Stephen of Hungary Church in New York. So that was our life.
Yes, so fascinating. Did you share the love that the Countess had for horses?
I did when I was younger, but I don't anymore. We would come out here and ride all over the property. And we also would go out every summer for a month out to Montana, where she has the Bitterroot Stock Farm, where she also raised Hungarian horses. And we would go riding every single day, pretty much all day. And I had, as a child growing up, I didn't own the horse, but I had a Hungarian gray mare called Lucky. And Lucky was my special horse.
Oh, that's charming. And what do you know of your your step grandmother having saved this particular breed of Hungarian horses?
Well, it is a specialized breed, and you know, they were going to be completely destroyed during World War II, and Margit, the Countess, took it upon herself with the help of General Patton to try and bring some of these Hungarian horses over with Judith, and I forget her last name now, Jurki. And together they brought over, you know, I don't know how many horses, but arranged to bring over these Hungarian horses, and then she bred them in Montana. And so there's a beautiful brick barn in Montana that has sort of the heritage lines of some of these Hungarian horses, and she had some favorite ones.
One was named Humphrey.
Yes.
Am I remembering correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
So,
And Tussie Lowell was one that she rode in an endurance 100-mile competitive trail ride.
I understand that the woman who you just mentioned, who she brought the horses here to this country, actually competed in the Olympic side saddle.
Yes, I think that is correct. Mm-hmm.
But because women were not allowed to compete at that time, she was never awarded the prize, even though she won the competition.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'll have to. My sisters may.
Okay.
I will have to ask my
That's
sisters about
the
that.
Rumor has it. Of course, I don't get everything right.
Right.
Would you like more, or is that? Do you think that's?
She didn't introduce herself, right? You want to just to make
Okay.
a short introduction of herself?
Okay, sure. We'll do that now. Tell me again your name. It's Doctor.
Yes. Yes. So I could go also by Baroness, but
That's true.
Baroness or Dr. Margit Bessenyey Williams, and.
And tell us about your doctorate and your area of study. You did a PhD, I believe, at
Indiana University in Bloomington. Yes. So you know, when I was getting my doctorate and working on my dissertation, it was right at the time when the Berlin Wall fell and these countries were turning democratic. And I had focused my studies on Eastern Europe to begin with, getting my degree in political science. And so actually I studied both Western and East European countries. And what I ended up doing for my dissertation was comparing the Spanish and Hungarian transitions to democracy to figure out what role the European Union played in each particular transition to democracy. And the reason I chose Spain was because Antal József at the time, who was prime minister, very much likened Hungary's transition to democracy to that of Spain. So the analogy doesn't really, after doing research, the analogy didn't really hold up all that well. And in particular in the case of Hungary, which has a substantial Hungarian minority in neighboring countries, the EU, the European Union, put on all sorts of additional conditions for Hungary's accession to the European Union that Spain did not have, primarily relating to border changes and trying to incorporate these neighboring Hungarians into a vision of a greater Hungary, which of course the European Union absolutely did not want to do. No, not allowed to change borders.
Now, I believe you were a contributor to many chapters of books, as well as publishing many articles in academic journals. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. I also taught for 10 years. I taught a course on international organizations and the European Union at the time. And I haven't taught for 9 years now, so I'll be clear about that. But I also taught a course on the new Europe, because of course this was once again, as Europe was becoming this new entity with the European Union, Central and Eastern Europe were turning westward. So, and in fact I had a student who so liked taking my course that she actually went to Prague for spring break and took a picture of the main square in Prague, a beautiful black and white picture, and gave it to me. And on the back it's written, "Thank you for introducing me to this new world of Eastern Europe, and I had such a wonderful time traveling over there."
Wonderful. I have to ask you, what do you think of Hungary and its prospects for the future?
Oh, terrible. Hungary is in a terrible state under their
This is
current
off
prime
the
minister.
record.
Okay, under the Prime Minister Orban. I mean, basically, Hungary has completely reverted to an autocracy
Yes, I know.
and an authoritarian country, and it's heartbreaking.
I'm sure it is.
And I have a cousin who lives there, and I have some friends who still live there, and it's
Yes.
just appalling.
I had to get your insights on that. By the way, I did I have a PhD too in
Okay.
business management, but I actually did the subject of my first master's was on Hungary and tourism.
Huh.
That was
Really?
many years ago. So I'll have to see if I can dig up my thesis and send you a copy of it.
Yeah, I would. Hungary and tourism.
Yes.
And when did you write that?
That would have been in the 80s.
Yes, the first time I went to Hungary was in the early
Yeah,
80s.
I think so. And they had a travel writers convention there, or to the Travel Writers Society, and I was there. It was very interesting. Did that kind of cover it for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Anything
Thank
else?
You did it good. I think it's okay.
Okay, all right.
And what is this for? Just for archiving things?
Well, we're actually creating a video. I mean, this will,
Documentary?
yes, archival purposes, and we'll actually, there's a video that's being created that we have a grant for called Inside Mount Aventine. So the part about your aunt will be particularly relevant, but any part that you
My
want.
aunt and my step-grandmother.
See, I did it again. Your step grandmother.
Well, it's easy to be...
embedded in my head.
No,
and now I
it's so easy to be
Is- is your
confused because my
aunt?
aunt actually
Yes.
worked for many years
Yes.
for Margit,
Oh, she
training
did.
horses
I
and
know
taking
she
care
did.
of the horses.
Oh, I
and,
wanted to show you the other picture.
and
of
she
your aunt
traveled
that
with
we had.
Margit, you know, and rode her horses for the trail rides and stuff like that. But she actually worked for Margit.
Yes, and I wanted to show you the other picture we have. I forgot to do that. All right, so we're going to go downstairs.